Good. Welcome everybody to the Treasury call. Today we're starting off a smaller audience, but it's okay. We have usually 10 minutes allocated at the beginning to introduce and onboard people to Treasury Guild if they need so, and if there is any open questions, we can quickly tackle them. But main topics are today consent dashboard. So I took some pictures, like some statistical results out of the consent process, look at it, see if we can come with some nice insights, and that could help us to improve our processes in future. And then another topic that we have around is how are we using ambassador program reserves, as it has, we know we have it, but we haven't really talked about much. And if there is still some topics or another agenda to discuss, we have plenty of free time today. So starting with the first one, is anybody in need of introduction to Treasury Guild call or have some open questions? Right. Then let's jump right into consent dashboard. So what we have here on the first, actually, I'm going to drop you the motherboard if you want to follow along yourself here. So the first dashboard, what it shows is basically the out list. You remember Q2, we had it, and if I zoom out, it should be somewhere here. But previously it was made in Excel, but now I made like a model. So we basically see two different things with the same kind of logic. Here the iterations are slightly different. This iteration 1 and iteration 2 are basically exactly the same, except that in iteration 2, the writers workgroup proposal is different. So this is the only change here regarding this. And yeah, we see these numbers. We can see that they are kind of low. Also, on the right side, and there is a list of each of these like bars is one person. Right now they have each random ID, each unique person, and there we can start telling how many people did, like how many proposals each person did, and also which proposal they did. So there are, you can see there some people who only made one proposal, and some people somehow are empty, which means that their name was recognized, but no consent was made, which makes no sense. Maybe because it's iteration 1 and I removed the iteration 2, and so that those who were answered in iteration 2 are missing from iteration 1. Basically, I did that.
I was already wondering, like, how can these be empty? But they are filled in the second iteration. So it must be people that in second iteration. Oh, you can see it right on the color. I imagine. Well, I can't see the actual color, but I imagine this is regarding writers' work group.
Yep, probably it is the writers' work group related. And yeah, one thing I didn't really too much like make sure that I have no edge cases in dashboard, especially for Q2. So we don't have to analyze this that much, but what now it's getting interesting is to comparing how we have progressed for Q2 to Q3. However, in Q4, we had, or 3, we had a bit more these iterations. It's still unclear. I think I also misunderstood the iteration, like when it starts and when it ends. Like, is the iteration per proposal or is it iteration per iterations we're actually having? And so there is a bit of confusion, I guess, here. But in this dashboard itself, you see And what I did then is I considered each iteration to be its own like time frame and not per proposal. So in the first iteration, you can, actually not, there are both of them are here. So if there is a strategy build, even though it didn't go in the first iteration, I think it wasn't in the first iteration, I still added it in the first iteration, even though it's first, like when he first came was actually the second iteration. So there are these slight misunderstandings that perhaps that's also feedback maybe we could clarify in future which way we want to see it, or both ways. So yeah, but overall, the idea is that each iteration has this like consent amounts, and we can see how many people voted yes or no or abstained. And on the right side here again, it gets less useful for the future iteration when there is only one proposal. You can see how many people are voting, but at the beginning, this gives a bit nicer view on how many then people voted for different proposals. And now we can see the amount of work groups or groups itself is somewhat similar. I don't know, we don't have the absolute numbers here, but the responses are quite all over the place, I will say. Like not every people did all the proposals, and there's a lot more this hard. Oh, actually now I know this is actually where you can see the iteration 1 and 2 differences, because technically iteration 1 only had 10 proposals, but it includes in here some of the proposals like what you did in iteration 2, I think, because 50, 1 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so it's still 15, but it can include some of the iteration 2 proposals that was not addressed, that was not in the first iteration.
Question, if I may.
Yeah.
On the iteration 1, what does it mean if there's a 2 or a 3 in the for a user? That simply suggests they submitted twice, or?
Yes, that is a thing. Yeah, that means they submitted twice or somebody 3 times on the same thing. And this is also another feedback I kind of feel like, I assume it will be easier for the submitter if they have a forum for every single proposal, and then they just, based on the proposal, take the feedback form. But because all proposals, I guess, are very similar, and you don't know when did you vote or not, and you have no way to check it other than assume, unless, I don't think we have it implemented that send the email, and some people don't even implement, like say that yes, they want an email of what responses they chose. So I'm thinking we could improve here a system where we actually have only one feedback form, and people select from a like option, like what work group are you now answering. This way we could have this result as soon as you provide the feedback publicly available as a Google Sheet, but we can hide the columns of who did it, so that we just have the response made now, and this was the response and this was the feedback. So if you are, because that was also, I think twice came back to me from different people that they did say something, some concerns for a work group, but actually did it accidentally to the wrong work group. And it's unclear. So yeah, now it has option to look at what you said to where you say it, and now you can actually point, hey, can you move this around or something? So that's just one suggestion regarding to these numbers too, and maybe help to reduce the amount of overlaps people will have. And yeah, technically it wasn't actually that hard to combine this. It took a bit time, but once I got it handled, it was super simple.
A quick question there. Couldn't we set up the form to not allow multiple responses and allow people to edit their responses? Then the moment they start doing a second iteration, they submit the form for the second time, they will see the previous answers. I think.
Yeah, that would solve it if we would continue using every single form for every single proposal. Yeah.
Yeah, fair. If we step away from that, it's not a situation anymore. I would then still allow for editing responses, I guess. Clearly, there's still timelines to be adhered to. So yeah, I would say you can't really change your submissions after the deadline, but yeah.
But yeah, any insights people kind of now gathering? I'm gonna just share the PowerPoint link again as new people join and want to share about. I know there was this retrospective session, which did also address some of this consent stuff, but they didn't have a dashboard to cover. So I'm wondering if you have a feedback here, can point at it. And we don't have to go too deep, but if there is something new that you found out, for example, I'm interested in this one. This is probably the writer's work group, right? Okay, this is actually, it's like there are people who only submitted 2 proposals, for example. I can't tell now what it is. Well, we can tell. We can just not look at these pictures, but actually open PowerPoint.
Yeah, I was wondering, is the screenshot, is that arrow, that's not functional, right? It's Miro, so it's a screenshot?
Yeah, this is just a screenshot.
So potentially for future outputs, would be nice to have the full legenda in there, but yeah. Because I imagine these screenshots would be very nice to, you know, to archive and to have and to analyze over time. And then to not have full legenda is, yeah, not optimal.
I'm gonna take Power BI to the second screen right now because I don't think I actually planned showing Power BI. Oh no. Just making sure there are no emails and stuff coming up. Let's say data here. Let's put that away. Okay, looks fine. Yeah, one interesting thing, every time I open Power BI, this random ID is always auto-generated, so it looks every time a little different, but it's just order is different. Now we can see if we look at it, it's gamers guild and treasury guild. So one person only, and then another person also a gamers guild. And then one person. So I wonder, in these situations, is this a good thing or a bad thing, or what your thoughts about when there is only one person consenting to one proposal? We don't know if it's yes or no, we just know it that one proposal is there. But is this now a problem to us? Does this mean we are not that clear with the process, or we do expect that like core contributors to be aware of more than one work group?
It's a good question. Touches on making it mandatory, right? In itself, I would say it's better if somebody participates in 1 than in 0. At the same time, if we see one work group pushing all its members to just vote for its own proposal, yeah, that's a way of gaming the system, which is currently technically available, I guess. We're not actively preventing it. I'm not super sure how to go about that, to be honest. In itself, I think it's a good thing there's participation. So, yeah.
Yeah.
The consent process doesn't actually depend on how many people vote, does it? It's basically, is there any objections? So even if a work group does have a big group and gets all of its members to vote, well, to submit a form in favour of its proposal, that's not necessarily going to help it any, is it?
Right now, no, but we did mention we want to put the quorum in. It just hasn't decided. I think we actually we didn't decide it, but I think Peter did say that it was decided in the ambassador program last time. So
What? I'm not sure if
yeah.
maybe I misspoke there, because I don't think a decision is made on this.
Because I think you mentioned like there is if it doesn't reach quorum, then we have like some quorum of 80%. I think you said it out loud. But either way, like if it's not or not implemented, this will affect it heavily.
But that's not about quorum, Tevo, is it? I think that is about if we end up going to several iterations, then we look at 80% rather than needing 100%. So it's
Okay.
not about, it's
Yeah.
not related to how big the quorum is or isn't, or even if there is one.
Yeah, as Vanessa mentioned, I can see myself having said that, because I do think that's accurate. But this would be on the third iteration only, like after 2 rounds of not reaching full consent.
But in the end, isn't the same thing? Okay, so I understand the first iteration, you have to have a full consent. On the second iteration, now it's implementation. Like if nothing changes, there is a bunch of concerns, or one person has a bunch of concerns, and then there is say 10 people who say yes, this is gonna pass. Yes, it won't pass the first iteration, but it will pass the second iteration if nothing has changed.
Now, the third, I think the second, we're still saying we continue to look at concerns no matter how many people it is, aren't we?
I think that's the current outline. Yeah, if there's a concern, we address it in a call, and after that, go to a second iteration, if needed. Like if there's if the people that object step up in that call where it gets addressed and declare that their objections are, dealt with and adequately, it's fine to proceed, let's say, then we don't need the second iteration for the proposal. But if it remains questionable, let's say, or well, not full consent, then we move to a second iteration where the same applies. And I think current outline is then, if it's still not resolved after the second iteration, we move to a third iteration, where then we would not need full consent, but 80 plus majority. I think that's the current outline.
That just raises a question for me, which I think was raised in a previous meeting. If somebody comes in on the second iteration who didn't even submit a form in the first one with new concerns, those are still valid, aren't they? And they're still treated the same as they would have been if they were in the first iteration, right?
Yeah, currently they are. It was discussed during OpenGov last week that potentially, well, we didn't make any decisions. It was just raised like, should you be able to join on the second or third iteration if you were not part of the first iteration? Because it kind of drags it down if people only step in very late into the process with new concerns.
I suppose so, but I think this kind of speaks to something that I was wondering ages ago in a meeting. Should we, in order to try and get people to take part after the first iteration, should we, and I know it's difficult, but should we be kind of publicising what the concerns are? Because, if somebody hasn't been involved and then they see, oh, right, there's concerns about this is an important issue, I want to have my say. I mean, it's difficult to think how we would do that without it looking as if we were making a judgment about the points that have been raised. But I think it could be done to say, all right, these have passed, and then there's concerns for this group about such and such, that group about such and such. As long as it's kept factual.
So what you mean factual? Does it mean it does go through a process of reviewing the concerns and then
No.
maybe publicizing, or we?
No, I don't think it would need to. I think maybe it would be a case of after the first like consent discussion meeting, just say, you know, maybe when we publicize whatever recording or summary there is of that, it could include just, okay, these are the groups that have passed and these are the groups that there are concerns about, and those concerns are ... So like, what are the outstanding concerns that might necessitate going to a second iteration?
I think indirectly we do not really call it out as such, but we are available in the public quarterly sheet.
I know, but people
But
don't look, do they?
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm trying to think about, you know, we want more participation. And I'm just trying to think, how can we do that? And how can we make sure people are clearer about what the issues are without them having to, I don't know, arguably you could say if they're not prepared to read through all the reams of stuff, then maybe we don't want their participation. But I don't agree with that. I think with people being as busy as they are, it might be helpful to set it out in a succinct way.
Yeah, I really agree with that. It's I posted in chat as well. Like in itself, as the concerns are legit, we should be open to them, you know, regardless of at which point they get brought up. But I think for Q4, practically speaking, maybe we should just go completely overboard in you know, clearly having too much communication about it, so we can kind of rule out that lack of communication, and then clarity on where we are in the process and which things people should be looking at. That we can rule that out, basically, like go overboard almost with communication.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Well, the discussion or question started from a different place, but there was a point I want to make, like carrying over previous iteration concerns. That's nice, but I also want to point out that I think there was a place where we discussed that the concerns will also come from previous quarter. So whoever who passed had concerns, they will be still looked at the next quarter, like brought over. Okay, let's check it. But on the first question, actually, like, so, or basically we did answer, maybe just indirectly, is that there is no issue of some core contributors only looking at one proposal and consenting on one proposal and be done with their process. Because I don't know, like it's just because it's not about its concern, it's just like if a person only here for one proposal, is it fine? And looked like where the discussion went, it is fine.
I'd say it's not ideal and we don't want to encourage it, but since it doesn't particularly give an advantage to the group that's happening to, then yeah, we have to allow it, I guess.
One thing I would note is compared to quarter 2, we have a lot more people actually answering the proposals in the first iteration. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Almost 12 people went through 10 different proposals. Where with the second iteration, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where there was also quite a lot of proposals, but we can see the drop off is like crazy amount. And we still don't reward people or anything. So I'm just like bringing it back and making sure we want it. Like, do we want to incentivize more participation? And through the last retrospective, I did hear that maybe there is too little time between two different iterations. so to make that, and maybe a too little understanding the value of second iteration. So is there some insight that we want to bring out, or an action item or a decision item that may affect us to the future? And Vani, start with you.
I was just wondering, not for you to like bring it up now because I guess it might be in some ways confidential, but can we see if the people who are voting on consenting on just one work group are actually members of that work group? Because I think we're making that assumption, aren't we? That
Yeah.
that's what's happening, and it might not be. It might just be that people are going, "Oh, that's contentious. I should have my say on that," or something.
I could look that, but I'll do it off screen. While I'm checking if I can quickly push it together, Peter.
Well, on the timelines, during the retrospective, yes, the last period's timelines were very short, but at the same time, people seemed quite appreciative of it. It pushed work groups, well, to get the work done, and they did get a lot of work done in a short time. So it was, I think, there was almost more appreciation for the short timeline than people complaining it was too much. But then again, we had low participation in the later iterations, and the people not participating typically don't speak up about well, they don't speak up as much, if that makes sense.
I don't know, as I remember it, I think a few people in the retrospective meeting did say it felt a bit rushed. And yeah, I think that might have been part of the reason for the drop off in participation between consent round 1 and consent round 2. I don't know, I'm guessing, so yeah, maybe we can't go by that, but
I think it's accurate. I mean, not based on data, but yeah, I do share that. Yeah.
but you know, if we don't, then we're going to be at this consent process for a month and a half. So I don't know.
I did look at the results from these single individuals, and yes, they are part of that work, and they are core contributors.
Okay, fair enough.
In this case, at least for iteration 1, I didn't look at iteration 2.
And also just noting that part of the short timelines was coming from this not really necessary intention of getting it sorted before the start of the quarter, which in itself, if we do allow for, proper planning, since we now caught up with any backlog, we should have a bit broader timelines, I feel.
I mean, I'm just thinking, do we actually need 3 rounds of consent? We probably do, but it just feels like one of the problems that I saw this quarter is that those groups who got past, like in the first iteration or kind of early in the second, the fact of doing it early and getting your budget in soon didn't have any positive effect because you were still sat there waiting to find out what the lowering percentage was going to be and how you had to cut your budget. So you couldn't crack on with any work, really.
There was feedback that was shared by a lot of people. At the same time, I'm not quite sure how it should actively block people from proceeding if you have uncertainty about the lowering percentage, because the range...
It's because you don't know if you're going to be able to afford to do certain work you might have budgeted for. So it feels difficult to prioritize. If you can be in a situation where you think, well, if the lowering percentage is that, then that's got to go. But maybe it doesn't have to go, and there's other work that depends on it. So yeah, it's
I get them.
difficult.
But in theory, the process, best case scenario, maybe a fairy tale land, but still, the full round would be concluded before the start of the quarter. So then there's no waiting.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah, no, that's very true. The multiple iterations in the initial timelines were not quite planned to take.
I mean, I
That's
think what we're
important.
saying, we were congratulating ourselves for getting everyone's budget in before the end of the quarter, but what I think we're saying here is it's going to have to be well before the end of the quarter. It should be first week of September, if anything.
Yeah, if allowing for this for the multiple iterations, and every time it's a week, right? So yeah, that was not included in the initial timelines. That's where this stems from, I feel.
Yeah. But coming back to this dashboard itself, the question is, I guess the overall question is, do we continue the consent process in Q4? If we do, and do we want to have similar dashboards updated for Q3? And if we do, is there something that you would have liked to know from these dashboards or addition, like what information or insights addition you would want to see from these results?
I think, yes, if we continue on a consent process, we should continue with these. And I can't think of any other information that I would need to see, except possibly something comparative across quarters. I'm just thinking if there's a work group that consistently gets a lot of downvote, I keep calling them votes, they're not votes, a lot of unconsents, then does that mean that we need to look at that work group in a little bit more detail? I don't.
You mean across the quarter? So you mean like
Across the 3 quarters that we
Yeah.
will have done this by the end of the year.
time series of each?
I think I'm just talking about what you were saying before about just kind of whether we pick up and continue to look at issues that were raised in one quarter in the following quarter. And I'm just kind of thinking it's not just about that. It's also if there are consistently every quarter a work group gets a lot of unconsents. It's kind of like, do you know what I mean? It shouldn't just be about, oh, is this particular issue continually coming up? It's more like, are there continually problems with this particular work group? I mean, I don't know if we can derive anything from that, but I think it wants looking at least.
Yeah. I think it would be nice to see also in the sense that how many proposals, for example, right now we need to manually kind of see, okay, let's see, translation work group. The first quarter, it got 4 people interested, and this time it was 6. So, which means that probably was more awareness that proposal is important, or there were more people onboarded into the work group that was like, oh, that's a cool thing, or more people are in the core ambassador program, or more generally aware that this is a thing they're doing and they support it. So I do see a value in time series for each work group throughout different quarters. Anybody else has some ideas, insights, something crazy that should, because yeah, it doesn't mean I might be able to get done all of these ideas, but you never know. I now use GPT, and all of this was basically generated by LLM. So I just typed in what I want. Oh, it's chat. Is there something? No, doesn't look like it. All right, let's move to the next item. How are we using ambassador program reserves? And so yeah, my first question is, how do we know how much reserves we have left?
There's a calculation for that. Right now, I don't have an exact number. Basically, we know our monthly allocations and we know our spendings. So that results in a number which equals our reserves.
do people want to know other than calculating on their own? And should it be a part of like Treasury dashboard somewhere, or should in Treasury Guild or in Gitbook or somewhere be like a number to be aware of?
Would be good. In itself, you know, if you see all the transactions, basically you can see all the incoming transactions, right, on the dashboard. If you total those and remove the or take the total allocations, you minus the spendings from that, you have the reserve. Not sure if it's easy for the dashboard to implement.
Probably. I guess this calculation itself might take a while, but probably the answer is here somewhere. So that's
Well,
one side of it.
additionally,
Another is yes.
Well, this got brought up, I don't know, half a year ago-ish, that there was a bit of unclarity, and then I bumped into similar unclarity from foundation side on how public do we want all foundation wallets to be. And well, back then the merger wasn't even a thing. I'm not sure what the situation there is right now. But in itself, that's, you know, we see the incoming tokens and we know our allocation. So this calculation in itself is not really directly related to that. We can do the calculation without knowing the wallets, let's say.
Mhm. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a cool question. Like, when does the reserve start and when does the reserve end? Like, because it's the funds are technically coming from, are they coming from directly from protocol, or they're actually already in the Singularity Net Foundation treasury, and based on contract you just release the funds?
So, well, it's a portion of the, like, basically whenever the wallet is running empty, the one we use for treasury, it gets topped up. The source of it, this getting topped up, is a wallet called temporary supervisory council, or no, intermediate supervisory council wallet. So it's not directly from the supervisory council wallet. There's a intermediate wallet in there, and we don't get the tokens based on the 0.5% of token mintings. We just get it on a as we ask basis, basically. In itself, over time, I feel we should be more in control and have the full reserve available somewhere, perhaps in a multi-sig setup, or, you know, the thing is, it touches very quickly. This topic touches on legal entities, because in a way, if the reserves, like right now, yeah, basically, well, if I need to answer your question on how long they are in place, how long they stay in place, I'm reading it as how long they stay in place. Not sure if that's accurate. Basically, it's our monthly allocation, all put together minus our spendings, and the rest we did not spend equals our reserves. So it's not, if we don't spend funds, we lose them. It's
Yeah,
still
I think that's
available.
what I was checking. It's
Yeah.
not clawed back at the end of a quarter or anything, is it?
No. But the thing is, it's a substantial amount. Let's get started there, because at the very start of the program, the token price was way lower, so we were spending relatively high amounts of tokens, but dollar-wise, it was still fine, and low amounts. So the tokens we didn't spend in those months by now have way bigger value. So I think, to give a bit of a ballpark estimate, I would say it's about 200,000 to 300,000 tokens-ish. That's a lot of money. And we can't just have that sit somewhere in a wallet with, you know, there needs to be checks and balances in place for guardianship on that. And right now we have the simplicity of it somewhere out there in Foundation's control, but technically we could ask for it. But yeah, without proper procedure in place, it's a bit risky, to just shift it over to Treasury and then hope everything will be fine.
Maybe I was taking too many notes and I missed at the beginning. So where do the funds coming from? Are they then protocol or is it foundational already? Like the phase 2 tokens, are they minted? And if they're minted, are they in contract?
No, they get
like
minted
smart contract or yeah.
They get minted every month.
Okay.
I think this is manual work right now. It's as automated as possible, but still not like fully non-custodial. So in that sense, manual. And then, well, so the supervisory council gets 1.5% of the phase 2 tokens that are minted every month. And out of that 1.5%, we get a third, so 0.5%. That's basically what the supervisory council allocated to the ambassador program as a source of funding, let's say. However, yeah, we don't, like when I ask for to top up the wallet, it's not automated, basically. Feel free to ask more clarifying questions. I'm happy to answer, but I'm not really sure what to say right now.
But in the latest ASI update, it was asked that all the supply would be minted in a one go, and then the ASI token would be moved from that. So I guess in the Q4, it would be minted tokens. It would be tokens that are already minted. Am I correct, Peter?
Minted, yes. Unlocked, no. Basically, they will be minted as locked tokens, which unlock over time according to the minting schedule. But that's an artifact of the merger in itself. Because the phase 2 tokens, they are originally they were to be minted over 91 years, and this is still accurate. However, because of the merger, all the supply of SingularityNet tokens, AGIX tokens, they are pre-minted on the FET token already, just to have the full supply there. I'm not sure if that somewhat answers. But as said, feel free to ask clarifying questions if I'm not answering properly.
No, that answers my questions, I guess.
As a side note, it's also related to why the current CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap are not giving the circulating supply in a correct way. We are in touch with them and pushing them to get it updated, but they are incorrectly assigning some tokens as circulating while they are locked, in fact.
What they show wrong? What wrong liquidity? Wrong. Token supply.
Yeah, circulating specifically. Total is fine, but circulating is well, we're still trying to get that sorted. It's about 1.8 billion, while they display it as 2.6. Yeah, yeah, it's additional info. I'm not sure how relevant it is here. So, on a zoomed out level, right now, as also mentioned, I believe last week in this call, it's a bit unclear how to deal with the friction between decentralized ecosystems and traditional finance, which the foundation has clear connections and obligations on the traditional side of things. So yeah, as talked about, there might be a situation where we potentially at some point need to generate invoices, and this can be automated and on a quarterly basis or something. But there's no paper trail right now outside of the blockchain transactions, and traditional finance or traditional systems, I guess. Yeah, they need. Oh, there's a service being done. Well, where's the money going? And then a Discord name won't cut it. A Discord name plus wallet address. So this is something that's, yeah, won't be sorted this week or the next. And of course, where I can, I'm trying to push as hard as I can for, in favor of decentralized rather than traditional systems. But I can't exclude at this point that we might at some point need to ask for people's a bit more information than we currently have from them, just being a wallet address and a Discord name, just to generate these automated invoices. And that could potentially be stuff like name, address, quite detailed, traditional invoicing information. But this is very premature, so I don't take this as me saying this will happen. I'm personally not in favor of this being a thing. I would prefer to be fine with a Discord name and an address. So yeah, it's a how to say, it's a current topic. Let's put it like that. And connected to that, there's like right now as an ambassador program, we don't have a legal entity. So part of that discussion was like, well, potentially we could have the foundation simply gift or as a service with an invoice move the tokens to the ambassador program if it is a legal entity. And that would then shift the problem away from the foundation and automatically also towards the ambassador program. So it's not a solution, more shifting of the issue. But yeah, there might be a solution there, like getting a limited entities where there's no personal, how to say, personal, not responsibility, but accountability, I guess. Yeah, okay. This gets a bit too more context than concrete stuff, but yeah.
Coming back to the reserve movements, so just to clarify, when currently all the minted stuff goes under SingularityNet Foundation, and basically then the percent that we request from Supervisory Council is going directly to Treasury Guild, or is there also ambassador program wallet between Treasury Guild and like, because Treasury Guild is doing the distribution, but is there a wallet between the foundation and Treasury Guild?
Yes. Well, there's a wallet in between there. That's called the intermediary supervisory council wallet.
Yeah.
That one, I don't ask it every time we're out of tokens. I usually ask it for a couple of months worth of allocation, so I don't have to bother these people every month. Especially now that we have pretty much shifted to reaching our maximum token amount every month. Yeah, it gets done in bigger chunks. For the record, it's not done by somebody from the supervisory council directly. It's done by somebody from the foundation. So the supervisory council, in that sense, doesn't have full control of its own token allocation. With the same reasoning as we as an ambassador program right now don't have access to our full reserves. The same goes for supervisory council. They've spent a lot less than their total allocation. So they would have, like if there's a new election, these people would all of a sudden get access to a very big token pool. And that's, yeah, just not ideal, or I don't know. It's all over time. These things will get sorted, but it's just very much in progress still.
So basically, we are requesting from Supervisory Council, and Supervisory Council is getting from the mints, and all of these operations are done by treasury operators from foundation.
Yeah, for all practical purpose, that's accurate. In practice, I ask somebody from foundation to send more tokens, which I then send to the treasury wallet. So there's no way around it. There's clear centralization in this process, right? That's also part of the things that will have to change over time. It's just it's quite slow. There's a lot of gray legal area involved.
Well, it is decentralizing in a sense because it is already coming from a protocol and then it's already distributed even more different projects. So it's fine.
Yeah. No, it's at the same time, I do have a quite centralized role there.
Well, somebody has to be accountable in that sense from foundation side. Else it would be awkward, I guess. I don't know. But coming back on where should it be shared? So when do we have the reserve number? And also, I guess maybe when we figure out so because we don't have a specific wallet, we can request because that wallet basically is synced with that supervisory council wallet. It would include super council rewards, right? And so we couldn't distinguish which rewards are for ambassador and which are for supervisory one, or they do have different wallets. Are they parking it differently, or it's all single wallet and we just request against it, and there is that notion of how much we are allowed to request.
I'm not sure if I got the question, to be honest.
Like supervisor council, does it have one wallet or he has multiple wallets? Like is the ambassador program rewards included in the same wallet as the supervisor council rewards, or they hold multiple wallets?
No, it's part of the same wallet. But before, like, I have access to send tokens from the intermediary supervisory council wallet to our treasury system.
Okay, so there are supervisor council and then there is intermediate supervisor.
Yes, and I think that's mostly there for me, let's say. But then again, the supervisory council itself also does not have control of the supervisory council wallet. It's just a wallet where these tokens get parked after minting before they get used. And then for all practical purposes, the supervisory council can, if they have a legit allocation for their tokens or they want something to be done with the tokens, or they get a stipend every month, that's taken from there.
Yeah, but in that case, we have this one single wallet that holds all the reserves, or is this intermediate wallet still have some rewards that are in the hands of supervisory council, but just no need to request it?
I'm honestly not sure. When I try to send tokens to the treasury so that the distribution can be done, sometimes I bump into that intermediary wallet being empty, and I just request the treasury team to fill it up again so I can do my stuff. And that's all I know. Like, I'm not sure if they send it from supervisory council wallet. I assume so. I'm not super sure. I do assume that's the way. And then technically the reserve would be there as well.
This is something we could check. So basically, why I'm asking is like if we have a single wallet where all reserves are, this could be like our blockchain trace of what should be left. And then when we do this calculation, it's basically fact checking itself. Like if the wallet amount is correct and the calculation amount is same, this means everything is fine. And if here is missing something, then either our calculation is correct or not all reserves are shared to intermediate one.
Calculation would be troubled by us only getting a third of the supervisory council allocation. So that other 1% would be in the same spot, probably.
same spot. Okay, now I'm confused what you mean.
Well, so they get 1.5% each month, right?
Yeah.
Phase 2 tokens. So our reserves are in the same spot as where that 1.5% each month gets minted to.
Okay, so okay, so this intermediate SC wallet isn't really for holding reserves. It's just to send out from SC to this intermediate so that it could be sent to Treasury.
Yes, and I have access to this intermediate wallet, but that does not hold the reserve. I do not have direct access to the full reserve. It's part of the setup. I'm not sure. I think it's a good thing because technically, you know, I could just walk away with how many tokens are in there. I could send it somewhere and be happy with it. So in itself, it poses a risk to have that full reserve available outside of foundation control. Foundation treasury control, rather. Like, yeah.
Okay. Okay, final question. Where should it be shared? So once we know what is reserve, how it should be shared in the dashboard, or do we want it in Gitbook? What is the expectation in here? Are there any expectation?
Not super sure. In itself, communicating a lot about the reserve will also trigger people wanting to spend it, which it's meant for spending eventually, right? At the same time, it worked really well for us spending a lot of these tokens, not spending a lot of these tokens at 4 cents, but still having them available as reserve. So I think, well, bottom line should be transparency, I guess, but
We currently have AGX balance of current quarter and AGX balance of previous quarter. But for example, having a line of AGX reserve amount or something in here, let's say like another field.
yeah, could be done. Yeah, should be fine. I think, you know, at the very start of the program, we didn't have the treasury system, and I just put everything in an Excel sheet. So if you combine that Excel sheet with the updates from the treasury system, you should have a full overview of all spending over time.
All these backlog tasks on Treasury, they are kind of sidelined. So I know I'm aware of that document. But I haven't imported. Oh my God, can I just draw a straight line? Nope. It's good enough. What I wanted to do. Okay, does anybody have any questions or something to share or before we close that topic?
Well, the starting question, how do we use reserves, hasn't been touched on. And this is
yes.
a big topic, of course. But yeah.
Good point. Yeah, I totally forgot that one. Does anybody have ideas how do we use it? Right now, we kind of know that we do use it by basically paying out all the overspends, which then brings us what happens in this quarter if somebody reaches budget 0 or negative territory. Do we continue rewarding them from the reserves, basically, because we don't have any other source? And I guess that's the question. Do we want to reward people going over budget? I'm not, maybe don't reward them for going over budget, but I mean, do we want to continue rewarding when they are over budget from the reserves or not?
Yeah, as put in chat, I'd be against having the reserve available for overspending, just as a broad stroke thing. Because then, what do the budgets even mean, right?
It's a guardrails. That's our aim.
Technically, we do have this 10% price change buffer that is coming from reserve. I don't know where otherwise it would be coming from, so it has to come from reserve. That kind of reminds me of there's not, yeah, it's a sidetrack, I guess, but right now we do see that not every work group has contingency budgets, but some have. That I would like to address that in Q4 being uniform for all work groups. And also, I'd like to point out that since we sort of have started using the workgroup budgets to roll over to the next quarter, the reserve is not getting any additional tokens into it.
Yeah.
And we kind of shifted to a somewhat vague or not opaque or not transparent, to me personally at least, workgroup reserves system. So in a way, I feel well, yeah, that's something that's currently not super clear to me. Like, if you spend only 50% of your budget, how long will that budget remain available for your work group to use? Forever, or only one quarter, and then it's like, yeah, that's unclear.
Is this about like when work groups have had funding for a piece of work, but they haven't finished it by the end of the quarter? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, pretty much. Or they didn't do it, or they didn't even start it, or basically they did not spend allocated budget.
Maybe there should be something there about intention, because I think there are some things that some work groups have had money for and they've just kind of moved on and they're not going to use it. So there should be like a way of notifying and saying, yeah, we're not going to do this. And for me, it is kind of a question about reallocating. Like, if a work group got that money consented to and they're doing something that is different but related, I kind of think they should still have it. You know, because circumstances do change and we need to be a little bit flexible. And say, like, if you said, right, we're going to do this piece of work, and then there's good reasons why you don't need to do this piece of work, you need to do that piece of work, I think the money should be able to be transferred, even if it's like a quarter later or a few months later. But that's just my feeling about it.
Yeah, inclined to agree. But then, yeah, some months later, a quarter later, a year later, question mark. You know.
I think it depends what it is, honestly. I mean, maybe a year later is pushing it a bit, but I could imagine a circumstance where that would be valid.
Yeah, fair. No, I agree with that. I don't know. Right now, I think we established starting quarter 1 that unused budgets would roll over. And I think that's just it. They roll over, period. End of story. No questions asked. I'm not sure how often that even happened, and so how big of a topic it is. But in a way, it's also completely closing off our reserves getting funded or getting more tokens into it by the tokens simply not being used. So I don't know. In itself, I think it's a good thing to have a reserve that gets additional tokens into it.
We did have a parameter suggested, I think, few last year, that we have like 1% or 2%. Maybe we bring that back and have like a sentiment how many percentage of our entire pass ambassador will go to reserves. However, we are always actually over budget, so that's why it's not implemented. So if we would force in, hey, let's add 1% to the reserves, that would mean every work group will provide from their budget 1% to the reserve. And that doesn't seem also kind of effective. There is another danger here if we are, again, reallocating resources. I guess here we can see intentions because we are doing proposal and the reporting, and we're like, you proposed this, you did this, and now it's also basically every person to decide, well, was that pivoting worth it, or you didn't like that process or wasn't transparent, and that can stifle the work group itself, the way they handle it. But one thing I do bothers me a little is we have now new work groups that don't like leave their leftover budgets. What they instead do is, oh, because you contributed 10% of the time, or that they have a ways to kind of recognize who are their work group members, and then they just put out bonus rewards, like, hey, you get 20%, you get 20%, you can, and then they just leave on new quarter, and so they start with always like a clean slate, regardless if they delivered on a proposal or not. And I think there is a danger here in a sense that there are other work groups who do not do that, and it just puts these work groups in disadvantage who are being more precise of where their time is going. So it somewhat that competition or that kind of strategy, if they want to compete in this ambassador program, then they would have to adopt the same bonus requirements to just make sure that all the rewards are handed out to every member, even if the work was done much more simply. Or yes, what I have been doing is, yes, I just added more work, more documentation, more things, more features. But I could have done none of that and still get the same rewards, and probably nobody would have cared like where did that 1,000 or 2,000 went, because yeah, like that, this is what I see which is happening. I'm not sure how can we address it, or maybe this is just a cultural thing, and maybe I just can't myself too detailed over what I do and how I spend my hours, and I should be coming out of that and then start also applying. Okay, this document was budgeted for 100, we did it in 1 hour, usually our rate is 20, but because this was what we proposed, everybody who's part of it gets that full amount, because else we are just rewarding less compared to other work groups. And they see in the chat like this is a bit dodgy. And what to me, this the first, well, of course, research and development grid has improved a lot, but for example, the first iteration, their budget increased by 2 weeks or 3 weeks almost, because they requested the budget, but it ended up being far more by the end of the year because of the token increase. And they delivered nothing, but they handed all out all money. So that was like a clear like misunderstanding. But you got even more money than needed, but you did deliver even less than what you were promised. But now they're like documentation, everything is getting more tidied up. We still saw some concerns and issues, but it passed. And now we are going into third iteration. And even after first iteration, they did say that they're not going to do this again. Actually, they did it again. In second iteration, they just had flat rates, allocating full amount of proposal between people. But it was a bit more theoretical, like semantical, because I think they had like project assignee. It's just not delivered. It's like this person was part of this project, he gets the full amount, and let's see what happens next quarter. And then they continues. Although then I think they did say something about not rewarding people, so it's unclear how it kind of all got out, because we did one week we paid out like a lot of almost all quarter rewards. Yes, Fanny.
Just backtracking a little bit to the consent process. What you've just been saying, because you're up, you're sort of aware of it all. A lot of people engaging in a consent process in quarter four, they won't know any of this. And I'm sort of thinking it should be, it's partly about what we've been saying about making sure that concerns that are raised in a previous quarter are kind of reported on, and the group writes in their quarterly report how they've addressed that. But also, I just think, I don't know, say like if you were to put in a consent form which raised these issues, other people wouldn't know until it was too late. So I'm thinking, I wonder if we should be publicising the Google Sheet of the consent forms. That would solve the question that I was talking about before about, do we publicise, oh, these are the concerns that have been raised. Let's just share the Google Sheet and then people can see what concerns have been raised. Because I'm just feeling that because you're so involved with it, Tevo, you know stuff that other people don't know. And so they would never raise it as an issue. But it sounds like it probably should be raised.
Yeah, I think I tried to raise it in somehow, but maybe I was not that articulate or weak, and I wasn't in all the calls either, so I'm probably missed the session
Just
where I
raising
could.
it in a call. People don't always take it in, or, I think it would be good to, if it's in a consent form, then let's share the Google Sheet of that so people can see what other people are saying.
And this is was something on in the previous year where we said that instead of doing multiple submissions, we have only one consent form, and people select what proposal they are consenting to, and then they give their opinion stuff. But what happens is, as soon as they submit, there is a public sheet of their same information, except that their who is doing the consenting is hidden. So it's still kind of anonymous, but you can see real time who has submitted what. And then we have only one Excel sheet where there are all the concerns. And yeah, if people are capable of using the filters, then we can filter out specific work group and go like that, compared to right now where we have bunch of different forms, so it's bothersome to create the public link and hide and do all that. So instead, I've been just copy pasting the concerns into also a single sheet. So technically, we have been doing it, but maybe we haven't focused on publicizing, hey, read the concerns. We have more of publicizing, hey, now new consent forms are ready. Yeah, we don't want to delete them because that's a good statistics, but else I wouldn't have able to tell you, are these people from the same work group or not. And then, yeah. And then we wouldn't know how, if I delete them, I wouldn't know if they are. Okay, copy, if we could create a copy. Yeah, technically we don't even need a copy if you just hide it, then it's real time.
Just raise a question of who gets access to that information. Like, I think right now it's just the ambassador account.
Yes.
And yeah, not trying. That's a bigger topic, I guess. Who has account access to that one? Yeah, sorry. Let's maybe not go there because that's a different topic altogether.
Yeah, it is a big topic, but you reminded me this is actually a very important topic because there are now a lot of new workgroup leads who would get used like Ambassador Zoom account, or we have now the Ambassador's GPT, and I don't know, maybe somebody wants to put something to Google, Gmail, but not all of that is connected to everything. So there is a danger that they get, maybe there are some information we want to keep even more private. But yeah, that's another topic. Okay. Back to this. How do we use reserves? So for now, so there is one thing here is that says we don't want to make it used by overspending. So what should the Treasury will do when we import stuff in and we realize, oh, that work group does not have enough budget? Do we stop the entire transaction? Do we stop until to spend the maximum rewards? Do we stop paying the work group lead and pay everybody else until even everybody else are not able to be rewarded? Or we stop the entire work group transactions, even if there are leftovers, but the amount of requests are higher than the leftover. And then they need to decide themselves what they get rewarded, how they reallocate these rewards. Or we do the payment, and as soon as it's negative, after that, you cannot do any submissions. And basically, the Treasury could say, hey, you are now out of funds.
Clarifying question there. Is this just based on, is this impacted by token price specifically, or just a work group doing a lot of stuff and claiming more than they said they would?
Oh, because we can never tell. Like there can be this awkward theme that because the token price is, especially right now, like 1 week it's up, 1 week it's down. Like if they always do the transaction when the token price is down, and then they basically spend more funds by average. So yeah, like it is affected by that regardless because it's AGX and they are dealing with USD.
Let's assume volatility there and then ignore it for practical purposes because it can go both up and down, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But if we ignore it, it just means that if they are doing more transactions than they planned. It can happen. For example, in my work group and all the stuff I do, I don't really actually pay attention how much I'm standing out. I just have assumptions and estimations, and then I just kind of follow the plan. There are situations where I like, oh, $100 comes here. But then again, today I noticed, oh, tevo PBL, I just basically I spent half as less rewards for facilitation, all that stuff, because the topics are easy. We don't need to come up. Don't have to prepare anything too much. So I get back rewards from someone else. So it's always these small things that address. But there could be situations where they just go off. For example, in video work group, you can see they have these 100 videos like releases every now and then they edit it and then they reward it again, and then it's nothing really it's just a full management, just what it takes basically. But I'm not too sure they think fully through the impacts of when you scale up all of these small things. And we never know if it's like maybe it's just $100 they go over, but then it's fine. But like, yeah, like what do we do if basically reach to this point when statistically people are out of funds?
I mean, I think I said it up further up the chat that I think there should be a limit, maybe a percentage of your total budget that you can go over and just claim it from reserves without any hassle. And I think maybe we have to start saying, look, if you go massively over, you're not having it. And people who've done that work won't get paid, and that they'll soon start saying, all right, you shouldn't do that. But obviously that has to be with some awareness of token price, because people shouldn't lose out just because the price has dropped.
Well, there's awareness of token price or keeping track of the Treasury updates, because I think oh no, wait, that's program wide. I don't think so. I'm trying to think if a work group can technically on the dashboard find its remaining budget, and I think they can. So maybe I think there would be some responsibility from not necessarily Treasury, but it would be the first one that comes to mind, but some responsibility towards work groups to keep them aware, or at least provide clear instructions on where they can stay aware themselves.
But are we saying, I mean, people submit their budgets in dollars, and are we saying that you know, the budget that you've got to do the work you've said you'll do will be covered within reason, even if the token price falls? And are we talking here about people going over by making payments for things that were not in their budgets and so on? Because I think those are two really different things. You know, you had a budget agreed to do a certain amount of work at a certain dollar price, and then the price of Ajax goes down. That's not your fault. But if you're then spending on stuff you didn't say you'd spend on, that's another issue, no?
I would say most definitely another issue, and one which we can be relatively straightforward on. Like, you're spending tokens on things you didn't say you were going to do. I feel you can't use the budget for that.
I mean, we have had this discussion, I think, ages ago now. I remember Gorga saying something about it that I agreed with, that there does have to be a little bit of flexibility and responsiveness. You know, sometimes you start a task and you realize, actually, we've undercosted this. And it's just like, well, within certain limits, you know, if it's $100 here and there, and that means you complete the task properly, that should probably be okay, I would say.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. It's just that's also relating to not all work groups having a consistent contingency budget. Like, that would be, for me at least, the first place to check for covering these kind of things.
So would we prefer a hard cut, or do we still want the percentage to allow go over budget? Because it doesn't mean that you don't get the reward forever. What it basically, what I'm trying to get is that we are in Treasury operation call, we do our thing, and we just realize, well, these guys are out of funds. Should we even tell them that they're out of funds, or should we just keep paying? Because at current rules, we technically are not now don't need to do anything. So, and now it's like, if we block the rewards, what it means is, yes, it kind of goes this tension to that work group and maybe Treasury coil, but on the other side, it will put the pressure on that work group to figure out what has gone wrong in their rewards. Is there mistakes, or if it's genuine intention and that's what actually should be, I guess then figure out how to receive these rewards. Like, and then we have, right now we are implemented the, I don't know which is ready yet, but reallocation. So people can reallocate the rewards from their guild or their group to another group, or request more from reserve. But should this be like automatic, or do we want the discussion? So, okay, your funds get blocked. In order to now unlock them, join Treasury Guild session, or invite Treasury Guild member to that work group session and feel out the way. Because on the other hand, this requires a budget increase, or maybe like it depends on amounts. Maybe it's just $20. Then it probably is easy. Maybe there is another group can reallocate that. We do have on Process Guild and on Treasury Guild budgets for other work groups. So there are some these simple things, but it has scaled. For example, every week there is a $100 something to goes to something that people needed to do, but they realized it after they started doing it. But now it has scaled up to $400. And because we have 10 work groups and everybody does that, because everybody is now, holy shit, they didn't think of this budget crunch, budget fitting. Now it's $5,000. So there isn't that much budget. So there is, I guess, based on situation, a discussion is needed. But what triggers these discussions, and where is the accountability?
I kind of feel these are almost too big topics to solve, at least short term. Like, it's great questions. I mean, you want to facilitate as much work being done as possible, but yeah, if the reserves get drained because of all the work groups going over budget all the time, that's also not the way, right? I mean, it could be. Like, technically, we could decide to simply use the reserves for fluffing up budgets, or not having the budget cuts. The budget, what's it called? Trimming. That's not the word either. I mean, in a way, we are free to decide what we want to do with the reserve. However, some long-term vision would be preferred over short-term paying a lot of money for allowing to go over budgets. On the training, yeah, I do think that's a good one. But it's very hard. Like, we don't know. Let's say we're, quarter is 12 weeks. Let's say it's week 6. Then you're halfway over time. But a lot of things might have a lot of tasks, might have a monthly tempo in it, how to say, iteration. So after 6 weeks, you clearly didn't do any payments for the past 2 weeks of work. And yeah, it's I'm not sure what the best way is to give people insight into their progress of the budget. But definitely we should be proactive there, I feel.
Although that adds quite an extra burden to Treasury's work, having to keep an eye on what people are spending and have an overview of, what you're saying, that not everything proceeds linearly. Is this actually an issue? Needing to check and find out with the work group how far along they are with different things. But it's quite a lot of monitoring work, isn't it? And I kind of think we should be encouraging people to manage their budget themselves and to be aware if they've run out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and also in light of decentralization, they should step up and take that responsibility. So is it then just an information thing?
But to me, though, I understood that we have a hard stop, and yeah, it does require us to check the dashboard and compare the results. But I guess at some point we do notice it, and then it's hard stop, and we will notify people and let them know that this is happening, and pointing out how to see the results or where their money is being spent and how to check it, I guess. And then we continue with discussions how we proceed, and we solve them by the time it comes. Right now, it looks like everybody's fine except knowledge-based work group and policy work group. But there are perhaps some slight mistakes, and I haven't done the reallocation from process school to knowledge base. So there are reasons why these are minus. I just haven't done the necessary additions to fix these numbers. Assuming I have process code funds enough. Can't even see process code there. Aha, that's a good point. Because I haven't done any process code transaction, it doesn't show up how much funds I have left there. Ah, no, actually I found it. Okay, process code is here. So technically this should have more outgoing reallocation towards this one.
Yeah, but then it covers, right?
Yeah.
Close, but oh no, wait, 2277. Yeah, that covers.
There is a new dashboards, cumulative remaining. Oh yeah, we are out of time, but there is other topic about dashboard. Yeah, how do we reconstruct history, if at all? There is a question because if we right now, I think I have these limits of these quarters, but if we go to the history, it's much harder to kind of construct it. Right now, it's based on basically whoever spent in that quarter means they were active, and then they get this automatically distributed rewards for between all of these groups that were active at the time based on that budget they had. But every time the quarter ends, the outgoing reallocation, all the leftovers are added to reallocations. For example, you can see quarter 2023 budgets governance workgroup had 30,300 to spare, but because we didn't have this that carryover, it was all removed basically. None of the rewards were touched. They were active, they were paying people, but only they didn't like pay in AGX, but they paid in like time and recognized. So that's why they popped up. They had budget, but they didn't use. Same thing for education guild, marketing guild did use a lot. But yeah, so idea is that this history should remaining should end up 0. Although we are accumulating remaining will also consider all the future and not only the selected months.
Yeah, okay, so then the cumulative reallocation, that should be 0. I'm not sure how the cumulative works, but basically we only start.
Cumulative reallocation is an incoming plus minus outgoing, basically.
Okay. Well, but then we can have it. So I think they should all be zeros.
Cumulative remaining, no, actually nothing should be just zeros. Depends. Like this can't be 0 because.
Oh, I get that if it includes newer time, sure, but everything.
No, it doesn't include new point. It's just that it didn't have any incoming reallocation. Okay, that's why.
But before Q this year, this was not even a thing, so the carryover should not be there.
But that's what it says in a set. Yeah, okay, good point. Oh, okay, I will think of that because theoretically, I guess it should be 0. The thing is, they got the budget and they spend all back to Treasury. That's why reallocated. But now that's it. So this is correct. It shouldn't be 0 because all of the funds they had, they moved back to Treasury. So these are basically sharing numbers, how much was moved back to Treasury. And somewhat we could then know how much is reserved because 70,000 from these 3 months are going back to reserves, basically. Although outgoing relocation can mean to other work group. But in the, we haven't done that, so it's all back to reserve.
Well, in itself, it's great data to have, but I don't think there shouldn't be impact on the current allocation because
current allocation is this remaining all cumulated remaining. So if we want to go back to I don't know this quarter, then you can see, for example, African Guild has this much remaining. These were 2-month budgets, like Q2, Q3. And cumulated remaining is now considering the cost of the last quarter also, which means, yeah, I guess.
Oh, I get that. And for the recent quarters and months, that's all fine. I just feel like whatever a work group contributed to or pushed back to the Treasury back in 2023 should not be in the total for today.
Oh yeah, that is not.
Okay, cool.
Although you can see as a cumulative allocation. But okay, yeah, we are over time, 10 minutes, and we didn't get to the other topics. However, we got quite some next steps and activities and action items to do regarding our reserve information and a bit of consent information. All right, that concludes this month's Treasury Guild, and next month we have full-on vacation time, and we'll be back on September, starting with new Treasury proposal and new processes.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for hosting. And do enjoy the time off between quotation marks. I'm not sure if you're having actual holiday or just no meetings.
I do have a few days, but a lot of people I'm not a lot of meetings. I'm not in a lot of meetings, so that's somewhat the vacation.
Yeah, fair, sorry. Nice.
All right, cheers for hosting. Have a good one.
That's you.
Mhm.